April 15, 2016, 1:15 a.m. Early Friday morning, on a flight back from a show in Minneapolis, Prince became unresponsive. His private jet makes an emergency landing at Quad City International Airport in Moline, Illinois. Prince is hospitalized and receives naloxone, a medication used to block the effects of opioids, especially following an overdose. Once he regains consciousness, Prince checks out, going against medical advice. Wednesday, April 20th. Prince's representatives call Howard Kornfeld, a California specialist in addiction medicine and pain management, seeking medical help for the Starr. Kornfeld schedules an appointment for the following day, a meeting that Prince would never attend. Prince Rogers Nelson was born in Minneapolis on June 7, 1958, the son of jazz singer Matty Della and pianist and songwriter John Lewis Nelson. The 70s took rock and roll into a new dimension, with huge artists such as David Bowie, Elton John, and Fleetwood Mac dominating the scene. When witnessing Prince for the first time, many would consider his appearance to be striking. His enthusiasm could be heard in his voice as he would speak to the band. He presented a respectful demeanor to his fans, known to look them in the eyes when greeting them, treating them as equals, an uncommon trait found in the heart of Los Angeles. He was the guy. When everyone else was taking a coffee break, having an ice cream, Prince would be the one who would stay in the studio practicing. When they came back, he was still there. When they left, he was still there. The product of a broken home, Prince found refuge in music. By his early teens, he'd mastered multiple instruments and was fronting his first band, Grand Central. A demo tape by the young prodigy resulted in major label interest, and an 18-year-old Prince signed to Warner Brothers, insisting on the right to self-produce his music. Prince released his first album, For You, in April 1978, to minimal fanfare. Soft and Wet introduced his erotic approach, while I Want to Be Your Lover and Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad. From subsequent albums, Prince suggested his musical range and significantly upped his profile. Prince wrote his first song when he was just 7 years old. He would go on to sell over 100 million albums worldwide. He became one of the most iconic artists of all time, contributing to film, fashion, and music. But the one constant in life which sustained his creativity was his unparalleled work ethic. He played all those instruments, wrote all those songs. There was no doubt he was doing what he should have been doing in life.
I listened to all kinds of music when I was young. And when I was younger, I always said that one day I was going to play all kinds of music and not be judged for the color of my skin, but the quality of my work.
Prince was known to be a perfectionist. The music industry is now commonly riddled with auto-tune and vocal enhancement. Prince, however, refused any support that did not derive from his own efforts. He was detail-oriented, with the ambition to do everything himself in order to get exactly what he needed, to exact specification. It became well known that after stage performances, Prince would get the band to review what they had done. If any note was loose, he would be known to criticize them to ensure no mistakes would be made in the future. His perfectionism, though daunting, acted as a catalyst for those who surrounded him to work even harder in order to achieve their own goals. Interest in the youthful Starr was further kindled by Dirty Mind, a provocative and funky album that appeared like a directional marker at the start of the 80s. The jittery, new wave-ish When You Were Mine became a club hit, yet Dirty Mind largely proved too hot to handle for the radio. It didn't take Prince long to upend the music world with his startling demeanor. He rewrote the rulebook, forging a synthesis of black funk and white rock that served as a blueprint for cutting-edge music in the 80s. One of the remarkable things Prince will be remembered for is the way he could change genres of music absolutely fluently. Whether it was pop rock or funk or R&B, he would change the music from song to song on an album. He could tackle music from a wide range and could merge them to experiment. What defined Prince was his determination to succeed. To prove himself as one of the most committed artists, he was able to do almost anything. Prince made dance music that rocked and rock music that had a bristling, funky backbone. From the beginning, Prince and his music were androgynous, sexy, and provocative. His colorful image and revolutionary music made Prince a figure comparable in paradigm-shifting impact to Little Richard, James Brown, and Jimi Hendrix. Malcolm Gladwell popularized the theory. 10,000 hours are needed to master a skill. For a dedicated artist, working with professionals and being taught in a rigorous manner is the key to reaching one's full potential. Prince's work ethic was the encapsulation of this unyielding ability to keep going and self-criticize. Not only did he release a series of groundbreaking albums, he toured frequently, produced albums, wrote songs for many other artists, and recorded hundreds of songs that still lie unreleased in his vaults.
I was leaving school, and I looked down and I seen this guy go in front of me. And he was a shorter type guy, I didn't know. Then down the line I figured out, and we used to call him Skipper. That was the only name I knew him by until after he made his album. The one time I really noticed was that when I would always see Prince playing the keyboard, right? And I thought he was a keyboardist, right? Then all of a sudden, he got off the keyboard and sat on the side of the stage and started playing Carlos Santana. And that's the first time I ever heard him play the guitar, and it was masterful.
The Dirty Mind album was unfit for radio airplay. When You Were Mine became a huge part of Prince's early career. The song had become a standard of sorts, being recorded by various artists, including Cindy Lawson. Prince began making a name for himself through sexualized means, but he was willing to adapt, only to return to his rambunctious nature when the Controversy album was released.
He was a sex symbol, and being a young kid and seeing this person who was viewed in that way, that was him. He just really, he drove women crazy, and yeah.
Prince's looks takes components from Mark Bolan, David Bowie, and many other glam rock artists, which had become so iconic during the time. Prince would merge this style with his own funk influences. Both David Bowie and Mark loved funk, jazz, and Motown R&B, giving the genres a white British spin. Prince, however, coming from the middle of America and being African American, allowed his music to be more authentic, and yet still familiar to many listeners because of the already established musicians before him. Prince was so adamant to learn music that from a young age, his teacher would often find him standing outside of the band room before they got there. He wanted to start playing and was exceedingly passionate, staying late after school to be around music as much as possible. With each album he released, Prince showed remarkable stylistic growth and musical diversity, constantly experimenting with different sounds, textures, and genres. Occasionally, his music was inconsistent, in part because of his eclecticism, but his experiments frequently succeeded. No other contemporary artist blended so many diverse styles into a cohesive whole. Early images with Prince depicted him wearing high heels, mascara, and androgynous clothing on stage. This was a remarkably brave thing for the time. He didn't have a #1 hit to back him up. He wasn't yet cemented as a superstar. Nevertheless, he was putting his public image at a very high risk. In the early 80s, people were not so forgiving on gender-bending personas. Black men during this period were seen as hyper-masculine, such as what was depicted in the rising rap scene. Prince was a smaller, diminutive person who would wear ruffles and lace, but he pushed boundaries from the very beginning. Not just in terms of his style of music, which crossed all genres, but also gender perception. He was not scared to appear as a seemingly heterosexual man who was hyperfeminized.
Prince was unique, and so was his style. Now the first ever exhibition showing his outfits and instruments is opening, and it's in London. For his sister, it's a proud moment.
I was so happy, you know, to see someone be a child and dream to be something, and then they make it a reality, and on such a wonderful level. It's amazing, and I'm so happy that everyone gets to come out and see exactly what my brother wanted them to see. He saved all of this for them.
Prince's breakthrough was in 1999, a self-produced double album made at his home studio. He'd toned down, if not tamed, the hardcore sexuality and the longish, danceable tracks that appealed to disco and new wave fans alike. Whereas many saw divines in culture, in terms of everything from musical preferences to skin color, Prince forged a party-minded unity around the various audiences' shared interest in dance, music, sex, and romance. Those were the priorities outlined in DMSR, one of 1999's key tracks. The album launched 3 major singles: Little Red Corvette, 1999, and Delirious. Little Red Corvette was sung by many, including the youth, possessed sexualized undertones which was prominent, even in his own stage persona. His provocative image was portrayed through his movements, but he never tried to be explicit for explicit's own sake. Prince's eroticism was in line with the characters he would manifest on stage, treating them as meaningful storytelling tools. He was brought to the attention of Warner Brothers Records by a third-party representative. He was considered so good that he should work with Maurice White. It was near impossible during this period to be matched with a producer as successful and as powerful as Maurice. However, to the surprise of everyone, Prince declined the offer, opting to find his own path, to play all of the instruments himself. Even from the age of 17, he was completely determined to be in charge of his own career. During 1981, it was highly likely that nobody but the clerks in the record stores knew who Prince was. Eventually, word would spread, first from hardcore music enthusiasts to Rolling Stones magazine. Eventually, Prince's name would snowball through word of mouth. However, 1999 with the revolution sent Prince straight into the mainstream. From this point on, he found huge creative influence. He could give a song like Nothing Compares to You to Sinead O'Connor and have it be nothing but an ordinary exchange. In the 1999 BET Tonight interview, Prince famously said that he got into music and doing what he did was because he loved playing, to jump off pianos. No matter what, the art always came first and the money and the romance came after.
Since you took your love away, I go out every night and sleep all day.
Prince opened for the Rolling Stones in the Los Angeles Coliseum. In a surpassing turn of events, he was actually booted off. An unexpected occurrence, as not too long after, people would be begging to get tickets to a Prince performance. 2 things happened that day. The first, he was doing a lot of songs the audience didn't know since they were Rolling Stones fans. The second reason was because the heat was tremendous. Prince wearing the black trench coat didn't help either.
How do you think Prince's music has changed over the last couple of years? I mean, he was real commercial for a while, but this is really his own direction.
Yeah, I think he can do that. He always could. I think he can do it well. He can do whatever he wants to do. Yeah, he was a tad commercial at the beginning, but there was something to it, an edge that wasn't so commercial. Yeah, there was something that wasn't so.
But now he seems to be really going.
Yeah,
wherever
I think so. Yeah.
Do you hang out with him a lot?
No, we talk on the phone, no.
Like late at night or something?
Well, it depends on where he is and where I am. But
What do you discuss? You can tell us.
music.
Purple Rain was one of the defining releases of the 80s, along with Michael Jackson's Thriller and Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. The song elevated Prince from cult hero to superstar.
Before he created the music, he lived every bit of it.
The movie, loosely based on his life story, was set in Minneapolis and his real-life hangout, the First Avenue and 7th Street Entry Club. Prince wrote The Treatment and played the lead role. The film grossed $80 million, and the album, which won Prince an Oscar for Best Soundtrack, rained hits for a year. When Doves Cry, Let's Go Crazy, and Purple Rain being the standout tracks. Despite the fact that Prince had a rocket launch to the top of the charts, he was not satisfied to rest and stayed relentless. He said to his management that his desire was to be in a movie. Due to his contract with Warner Brothers, they had to come up with something. The narrative of Purple Rain would go through many altercations. However, it acted as a vehicle for the artist, a storyline loosely based on Prince's own life. It shows him as a romantic partner with a troubled life who falls in love. Though hugely talented, he has a dark and complex personal life. All things that would be applicable to Prince himself. The highlight of this feature was, of course, the soundtrack. Prince would go on to win an Oscar for composing and performing the best soundtrack for a film in 1984. Though critically acclaimed, the film wasn't remarkable due to the lack of acting experience or well-developed plot. The film still became iconic thanks to the music. It became an amalgamation of what represented Prince's diverse nature to break conventions and social barriers. Purple Rain is an incredible song, an anthem of sorts. It features highly apocryphal concepts in the lyrics. Prince had a real fascination at the time about the end of the world. The name itself, Purple Rain, alluded to the apocalypse, the sky turning red and blue as it rained purple. It was perceived to be about existing with the person or beliefs you love. The song and feature film was a miracle. People didn't know where it had come from. There was no evidence Prince could perform in a movie, and yet he did. The line frequently used was that this was the best rock movie since A Hard Day's Night. For any other artist, Purple Rain would have been a hard act to follow, but Prince already had another album in the works. Around the World in a Day, a tour de force of psychedelic soul released in 1985, it became the second consecutive #1 album and the first to appear on his own Paisley Park label.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. Oh no, let's go. You don't lie. The world we're living in. Take a look around. At least you got friends. So come on, lady. Oh, friendly word. Picked up the phone, dropped it on the floor.
To many, Prince's Super Bowl performance in 2007 was the greatest Super Bowl performance ever done. In 40 years, not once was it known to have rained during a feature. Prince was told it had begun to drizzle that morning and that it would be raining, making it incredibly difficult to perform in an opera arena. His response? Make it rain harder. The circumstances in which Prince had to perform could traditionally only be seen in fiction. The stage was flooded. The downpour was tremendous. The stage was a slick tile, made only worse due to the water. And Prince chose to make it work for him. With his guitar and his powerful music behind him, it was a performance that would be remembered forever.
Everybody, let me hear you.
With Prince's mania in full effect, the album generated 2 more top 10 hits, Raspberry Beret and Pop Life. Even a bad film, Under the Cherry Moon, Prince's first real miscue, couldn't halt his momentum, as the accompanying soundtrack, Parade, including the classic Kiss, his third #1 single. In 1984, Prince recorded a song called Paisley Park for his 7th record, Around the World in a Day. Its lyrics imagine a kind of utopia and sanctuary, themes he often would explore, places where his spiritual anxieties were assuaged. 3 years later, it was real. In 1987, Prince built a 65,000 square foot, $10 million recording complex in Chanhassen, Minnesota, and called it Paisley Park. It was intended to be a commercial facility. Madonna, R.E.M., and Stevie Wonder all recorded there. But by the end of the 1990s, it had stopped accepting outside clients. No one can quite say when Prince began living there. He wanted to establish a self-contained dominion, insulated from interference or judgment, where he enjoyed total control and his life could bleed easily into the work. Around this time, Prince talked about dueling identities within himself, conjuring characters that represented his good side, Camille, and dark side, Spooky Electric. The latter had its say on the Black Album, a controversial, hardcore set that was aborted shortly before its intended release. In its place came Love Sexy, which contained the terrific Alphabet Street. Commercially, Prince found himself back on top in 1989 with his soundtrack for the first Batman movie. Prince's dense, tangled funk meshed with film producer Tim Burton's dark, gothic vision, resulting in the album Batman and the single Bat Dance shooting to the top of the charts. It was followed in 1992 by an album that marked the first appearance of the symbol that Prince would formally adopt a year later as his name. Ironically, the disc, whose title was a symbol, and therefore referred to as the Love Symbol album, opened with a song called My Name is Prince. The numerology-minded 7 peaked at number 7, but Prince's most infectious funk workout, Sexy MF, proved too profane for radio.
We're all alone in a villa on the Riviera. Got some friends on the south side in case you cared. Out of all of your friends, I want to be the closest. That's why I tell you things so you'll be the mostest. When it comes to life, to be this man's wife, you got to be well educated on the subject of fights. I mean the prevention of. In other words, it's REM meaning of this thing called love.
Still, Prince seemed to be on a roll. In August 1992, he signed a contract extension with Warner Brothers for 6 more albums, and he acquired the title of vice president with the label. However, by the mid-90s, relations would sour as he began appearing in public with the word slave scrawled on his face while agitating to get off the label. In 1993, Prince launched an independent label, NPG Records. 1-800-NEW-FUNK, his next single, The Most Beautiful Girl in the World, which also appeared on NPG, marked a return to shot-making form.
Make it rain harder.
Meanwhile, relations with Warner Brothers, to which he was still contracted, were deteriorating badly. The release of The Gold Experience was delayed while he argued with the label.
And he is
disenchanted with what he saw as an
it.
unfairly one-sided relationship between label and artist that rendered the latter a slave, Prince was let out of his contract with Warner Brothers in 1996. His last album of new music for the label was Chaos and Disorder. After being liberated from his former label, he quickly resumed his prolific ways. Emancipation, a 3-disc set, attested to the artist's creative explosion after being granted contractual freedom. With his newfound freedom, Prince went on to release 1998's New Power Soul, an early album credited to New Power Generation. Rave Unto Joy Fantastic gave Prince the best of both worlds: artist ownership of his work and major label distribution. The album was notable for its production credit, Prince, which marked the first time he'd reverted to his old name in 6 years.
The greatest romance that's ever been sold.
In February 2004, Prince appeared with Beyoncé at the Grammy Awards, playing his own Purple Rain, Let's Go Crazy, and Baby I'm a Star, along with Beyoncé's Crazy in Love. A month later, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. During the closing ceremony, he played the song-ending solo on George Harrison's While My Guitar Gently Weeps, wowing the audience with his ferocious virtuosity. Together, these performances made Prince the talk of pop music again. From mid-2010 through the end of 2012, Prince toured throughout Europe, America, Europe again, Canada, and Australia. During 2013, he released several singles, starting with Screwdriver and continuing with Breakfast Can Wait in the summer of that year. All this activity was prelude to the spring announcement that Prince had re-signed to Warner Brothers Records, the label he had feuded with 20 years prior. As part of the deal, he wound up receiving the ownership of his master recordings, and the label planned a reissue campaign that would begin with an expanded reissue of Purple Rain, roughly timed to celebrate its 30th anniversary. The main reason Prince would be canceling shows was due to many years of over-the-top theatrics, such as knee drops and jumping from pianos. Doctors were passing him many prescriptions to help ease his physical pain. It became a common debate to wonder how much drugs took part in Prince's life. It is speculated that Prince's drug dealer, a man known as Dr. D, said he had never met anybody who had suffered as much stage fright as Prince. The man who, on one hand, needed to be greater, bigger, better than the rest, carried that vulnerability. The naked, raw insecurity which is part of the drive which made him perform. That combination of grandiosity and depression, the man who on one hand is too frightened to get on stage, but once on, is too obsessive, too driven to come off it. That combination was seen as toxic and is yet responsible for the work of so many great artists. This is the price Prince paid for creativity, the Faustian Pact. To provide an art, in return, the artist gives their life. Thursday, April 7th. At the Fox Theater, Atlanta, organizers canceled 2 performances claiming that Prince was battling the flu. The following Thursday, Prince was back in Atlanta to make up for the missed dates. By all accounts, he was giving his all in the incredible performances, doing 4 encore tracks. Prince was performing again to the very high standard he had set for himself over the years. After his death, Prince's longtime friend and bodyguard Kirk Johnson told investigators that he had noticed Prince looking just a little frail, but he said he did not realize he had an opioid addiction until a week before he died. The addiction derived from long-term use of painkillers to deal with a hip injury, stemming from decades of punishing live performances. In Atlanta, on the night of Thursday, 14th of April, there was little to suggest to Lucy Lawler-Frez, the concert promoter, that the star's life was already in danger. He wasn't feeling well when he arrived, she recalled, but you wouldn't have known. He just said he wasn't feeling 100%. He did a brief sound check. You wouldn't have known he was sick. The shows were phenomenal. He gave it his all. But we knew he wasn't feeling well because he normally does an after party. He did not. He was there an hour before he was due on stage and left immediately after. He wanted to go straight to his plane and go home.
Airport dispatch, this is Steve.
Hey, Chicago Center calling here. We've got an aircraft who is diverting into Moline, a jet speed 990.
Okay, do you know what about?
I don't know. I'm getting details now, but they want an ambulance ready. Give me 1 second. I'll get you some information here. I've got the other guy on the line here. Hey, Dan, what's the nature of the emergency? What's the nature of the condition? You know, male, female, age, anything? Okay, got it. An unresponsive passenger, they're not sure male, female, or age. Unresponsive passenger, they need an ambulance.
Prince was known to be a Jehovah's Witness since 2001, commonly knocking on people's doors to preach his religion. This choice, however, left Prince unable to have major medical procedures. His body was decaying, and yet he refused to have hip replacement surgery because it was not bloodless. He instead relied on opiates to deal with the pain. Saturday, April 16th. Prince appeared to bounce back quickly. He visited a local record shop, Electric Fetus, in support of Record Store Day. He was dressed really nice, Bob Fuchs, the store manager, said last week. I wouldn't have guessed anything was wrong. Prince shopped for about 15 minutes, picking up a half dozen CDs from Joni Mitchell to Stevie Wonder. That afternoon, Prince was also seen riding a bicycle around a suburban strip mall near Paisley Park. Outside a hair salon, nearby resident Julie Reed snapped a quick photo. After posting the photo on Facebook, Reed said her friends responded, "Wait, isn't he sick?" "Well," she said, clearly he was feeling better. On Tuesday, April 19th, Prince's condition appeared to have deteriorated. An unnamed law enforcement official told Minneapolis CBS outlet that a doctor checked Prince at a Twin Cities hospital. Later that evening, he was spotted at a local Walgreens pharmacy near Paisley Park. On April 20th, the following day, Prince met with Michael Schillenberg, a family medicine doctor who had been practicing for nearly 20 years. Prince received an unidentified prescription, his second in a few weeks from the same doctor. It is crucial to be understood that no matter how rich you are or how famous one might be, we all have the same brain, the same nervous system, the same appetites, the same hungers, the same capacity for excess, and the same capacity for self-destruction. Someone in Prince's camp reached out to Howard Kornfeld, a Mill Valley, California doctor who runs an outpatient clinic specializing in treating addictions. Kornfeld's son, Andrew, took an overnight flight to Minneapolis, but he was too late. On the morning of Thursday, April 21st, staffers became concerned when he reportedly missed a holistic medicine appointment. They headed to Paisley to look for Prince, and at around 9:43 a.m., 3 people discovered him in the elevator on the first level of the compound. An emergency call is made from Prince's Paisley Park mansion. 10:07 a.m. Emergency responders arrive at Paisley Park. Andrew Kornfeld told investigators that Prince was still warm to the touch. The first responders attempted CPR, but to no avail. At 10:07 a.m., Prince was pronounced dead.
We begin with the sad breaking news. He was possibly the most talented, charismatic, entertaining, influential, and barrier-breaking musician of his generation. Prince, the Purple One, died today at the age of 57. The cause of death is not yet known. We do know that Prince was found unresponsive in an elevator at his estate in Minnesota, and that the last few weeks of his life were, characteristically, a bit mysterious.
The last moments of Prince's life was spent in the lift in his own home. It is speculated that he had left the studio in Paisley Park, feeling fatigued. He leans against the lift. Lightheadedness takes over. Slowly, Prince slips into a coma before passing away. Carver County Sheriff Jim Olson said his deputies are equipped with Narcan, the same antidote used to revive the musician a week prior, but it was not deployed to resuscitate Prince. The addiction to opiates is a continued problem in the United States, though Prince's demeanor stood him out as a different being, not a human, but something more, a symbol. And yet it was the very same sort of drugs that many others would use that would be the ones to lead to his death. To have something so common and widely dispersed affect someone who was seemingly on top of the world was a shock to many. It was known to Prince's close friends that though Prince was an icon and grandiose on stage, on one-on-one, Prince was unbelievably ordinary and compassionate. He would take care of his friends and always show an interest in the lives of others. The massive outpour of public grief represented Prince's irreplaceable nature and how he touched so many hearts.
I remember reading a headline today that said that they had found a body in his home, but people were quick to say, oh, well, that doesn't mean it's him, guys, like everyone calm down. And so I was kind of thinking, oh yeah, it's not Prince. They would have said, if it was Prince, they would have said Prince. But when they said, no, Prince is dead, I don't know, how can there not be Prince? And then he's like 57 is so young, and I connect him to my mom, you know, like she's a fan of Prince, and I don't know. You just feel like someone that has been there all your life is just gone. So it was sad. You're gonna miss the music, you're gonna miss everything he is, but you're also, you realize how much a part of your life someone is, you know, when they're no longer there. Prince was awesome. Prince was really great.
Prince was all about us being like part of his journey. He appreciated his fans, I think, more than any other artist today. I love that Minneapolis came together as quickly as it did to celebrate his life, because he would have wanted this. He would have wanted an all-night party, people coming out and really showing their appreciation for him. He was all about the party. As long as there was like great music, he was about it.
The love and caring that everybody's giving each other, showing one another, you know, in remembrance of him. That is something so beautiful, because that's what he stood for.
You know, he was the greatest artist of all time. There'll never be another one like him.
Right, is that just about there?
And my son and my daughter down there have not had a chance to see Purple Rain. They're a little young for it, but we want to come down and see the movie and just be here with the crowd, paying our respects to Prince.
What did you think of the atmosphere?
It was phenomenal. You know, the music was cranked before the movie. Everybody was dancing, singing along. It was wonderful.
I can't. I just can't. Even my best friend's funeral. I just want this to be a hoax. I want this to be a hoax. And they said, "Oh, we made a mistake."
Facebook thinking that somebody was.
We made a mistake.
It's not what somebody else that they found.
Exactly.
And it wasn't
him.
somebody else.
It wasn't Prince Rogers Nelson. You hear me, girl? It wasn't him. It's hard.
Jessica, where were you when you first heard about?
I was at home, and as soon as I heard about it, I texted my mom, and if she wasn't in class, we would have been up here immediately. So it was pretty sad.
What was your favorite Prince song?
Purple Rain.
It seems to be a classic.
Absolutely. Little Red Corvette was really good too. Love that song.
Since Prince's death, the cause of which remains unknown, The worldwide press has rhapsodized about Prince's otherworldly talents and profound impact on pop music. The 7 Grammys, the Golden Globe, the Academy Award, the virtuosic mastery of every instrument he encountered, the mythic persona he cultivated, and the singular and revolutionary artistic vision he possessed that transcended race, culture, and sex. They're the legendary parts that composed Prince, an unparalleled force who was taken too soon, but whose work will radiate into eternity.
I knew his album was coming out, so every week I'd go to this record store and go, "Did it come?" And he'd go, "No." And then I'd go, "Did it come?" One day I said, "Did it come?" He said, "Yes, it's here." He put it on. I said, "Can you play it outside?" And he played it outside. And it was so, it made me so happy that he had got what he always dreamed of doing. I said, "Turn it up." No one knew, and I stopped people, random people. I said, "That's my brother."